Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chummy. Eric Chummy. Politely Pushy. Politely Pushy. I'm Eric Chummy, and this is Politely Pushy. Welcome to Politely Pushy. I'm your host, as always, Eric Chummy. Today we're joined by Christina Ellwood. She's a seasoned tech executive, co-founder of AI Realized, a platform for enterprise AI leaders. She's now also leading a stealth mode AI company. Christina, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Eric. Thank you for having me.
So tell me, what is a platform for enterprise leaders? Is that a community? I know you've got a summit. I know you've got a podcast. You've got, roundtable series. You have a lot of things going on. How do AI leaders come together? Why do they want to come together? What are they talking about?
Those are good questions. So like any time we have a new technology wave, whoever is leading the adoption of the technology in the organization, whoever's the early adopter, needs a network of peer players. If it's users, then they need to be a user community. In this case, AI is being adopted from the top down. So it's the executives that are leading the deployment that need a network. And they don't have a natural inherent network since AI is new. And since it's horizontal technology, it is being adopted across the enterprise. So they need to have connections and relationships with executives they otherwise wouldn't necessarily need to know in their everyday work. So we started with the summit back last October 2nd in San Francisco. We held a summit inviting executives that were leading deployments to be in the room together to meet each other. And we put on the stage Fortune 2000 executives that had AI in production. And that was, of course, a relatively small percentage of companies, since it was about 3% in adoption at that particular point in time. And then we held panels for people to share the strategies that they have used to overcome deployment issues related to data and security, operations, infrastructure, organization, and management. And then we rounded out the conversation with strategies for business planning for 2025 and technology planning. And that approach was gave a really solid footing to the people in the room. They found practical advice. They found people who were doing work they were doing that they could network with and relate to. They found great ideas for use cases and great ideas for managing those challenges. So they were so enthusiastic and excited about that opportunity to do it again that we did commit to having another summit, and we started to work on how we could support them in between, because a year is a long time in the world of AI. It's changing so fast, everybody has whiplash. So we started holding executive roundtables every quarter. We have a podcast, and as you mentioned, we also have a Substack newsletter, and that combination allows the executives to continue to get new information that's practical and useful for their work. It also lets us elevate the visibility of those AI leaders, so we're able to give them some standing and visibility to the wider community, but also to the industry that they're in. So,
How much competitive secrets get withheld in these conferences? You always hear business conferences, people want to share, they want to network, and they want to talk to people in different industries, right? Hey, I make potato chips and you make cars, so we're not competing. But with AI, I wonder how much is being not said.
It's a great question and an important observation. The executives tell us that the reason they want others in the room from their industry actually isn't for competition. It's actually because they know what's going on with AI in their industry. They want to learn from other industries so that they have a broader lens on the technology and its application. I think the forthrightness with which people share information is a combination of trust and privacy. So in the executive roundtables, we follow Chatham House rules. So you can use the information in the room, you just can't attribute it to the person or company that shared the information. That increases the candidness with which people share information. But I was impressed and pleased that from the stage, we had a lot of very frank sharing about rat holes they went down and failures and how they overcame them and so forth. So this is an interesting technology era, Eric, because one of the hallmarks of this era is that it is impossible to know everything and be the master. And that's not just because it's changing facts, that's also because it's broad and deep. And executives almost get a pass, unlike they have never had before, to not know, to not have the answers, to make mistakes, to be unsure, to be seeking, to be a truth teller. And so we saw that on the stage. They were willing to do that. I wouldn't say anybody said something out of turn. They certainly didn't do that. There's private information that every company, every executive knows how to talk about their experiences without revealing company information. But they were remarkably candid.
What was it that made you want to organize this thing a year ago? Why Christina? Like, why Christina? Why that topic? And why then, or why now at that moment?
Well, that's also a really good and I think important question. David Yakobovich and I co-organized the first AI Realize Summit last year. And we were holding networking events for executives in the technology industry that were on the startup side, either startups, investors, or CEOs and founders of startups, not executives of enterprises. So not this audience. So it's a bit of a surprise, I think, that we perhaps for others to think about why we might have done this. What we observed is that in order for these companies that we were trying to sell our new products to, in order for them to buy, they had to be ready to adopt. And they needed support to do so. So leaders need a network of leaders, and early adopters need a network of early adopters, and they represented both of those groups. So we decided to put them in a room.
Yeah, it's a good perspective. I never thought about that before. It's like you almost need to generate the industry, not you particular, but the industry needs to generate more customers. It needs to generate more people ready to act, ready to buy, ready to deploy, ready to transact. So if they're still just talking about it and thinking about it and scared, then nothing's going to get done. So there needs to be a little bit of a hand holding to get them over the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than hand holding, they need they need resources to address the concerns, whatever they are. So sometimes they're practical things like which tools are you using, or who has the better fill in the blank, or that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just as practical as that. But sometimes it's, how are you talking about it? How are you talking about it to your board? How are you talking about it to your peers? How are you talking about it to your team? How are you getting support? How are you upskilling your team? These kinds of questions really are only the experience of the executive internally. No outside company can help them with that. I mean, they can help them with training, but there's really not help for that leadership side of it, right? And so startups can't help them with that. But when they are ready, when they have overcome those issues and they're ready to deploy or ready to begin their project or their use case, then they need to decide build versus buy. And that's where the conversation can start with the startups.
What is the biggest mistake that you think enterprises are making when they think they're ready for AI, but maybe they're not?
I don't know that there's any organization that isn't ready for AI. I think there are cases where they are applying the wrong AI to the right problem, or the wrong AI to the right problem. And that's partly because we don't have a lot of evidence for them to use to make that judgment. Some of it's just trying and experimenting things. So there is wasted effort, and that's the reason you find these high percentages of failure. Those high percentages of failure are a function of the fact they're experimenting. A very high percentage of all experiments, whether you're a scientist or you're a developer or whatever, are going to fail. Okay, so it's an expected number that it's going to be really high. I think the bigger question is, why are we having friction in deployment, and why are we having friction in adoption? So a deployment friction can come from the hesitancy to pull the trigger, if you will, because we're unclear about the risks, or we're unclear about the scaling costs, or we're unclear about the scaling rate There's no way to know that scaling rate before you go, but you can do scaling costs, and there's some, things you can do to mitigate these issues. But so there's some fear, risk, uncertainty. Those always create decision friction. That's understandable. The friction of adoption is often about the use case that was selected and how people were brought along in the process in the first place. So if you've developed a use case that removes toil from a job that is, that truly is painful, the thing that people really hate to do, adoption is pretty rapid and it's sustained. If you pick something that is a better way to do something that already is done pretty efficiently now, you're going to have a harder time getting that to be adopted. If you pick something that's entirely greenfield, it's kind of bimodal. You'll have people who are so excited that there's a new way to do something we've never been able to do before. And you're going to have people who are like, why are you taking budget and putting it against something that isn't core to our business? So you get kind of a bimodal in that case.
So, we hear about pilot purgatory, right? A lot of executives, that they've got projects, they can't get them into production. They're trying to figure it out because maybe they don't want to fail the experiment. They don't know if they're going to get deployment. They don't know if they're going to get adoption. What are you hearing about? What is a common enough storyline or common enough talking point that you keep having in conversation about that?
So many will tell you that the technology is not the problem. The technology can do more than what we can even take advantage of. So it's mature enough that the technology is not the issue. But people are, and when they say that, they mean a lot of things. They mean, resistance, fear, skill. But the real issue is we aren't telling the story that tells them what their role is in that story and what the outcome looks like, what the future holds for them and for the company when they're successful. So we're not doing sufficient storytelling. And that's part of the people.
What's an example
issue.
of a good story that should be told?
What is a story that should be told? You mean internally to get people on board?
Yeah,
of
let's
something?
say you can example we don't have the right storytelling. So what, you don't have to name a name or a company, but I'm curious, it's one that maybe is in your mind that you could think of.
Well, let me share with you a use case that I would like to see as a common use case in the enterprise. That is a story that I would tell like this. Today, we ask salespeople and marketing teams to populate our CRM with data that effectively is the exhaust of the application they use, right, or requires them to manually type the data in. I want to develop an agent use case that will populate the CRM for them. It'll listen to the calls, pull out the information, read the emails, pull out the information, look at the website clicks, pull out the information, wherever the data is being generated, and will populate the CRM. That does so many valuable things for the company. First of all, it means we have complete data, which we do not have in our CRMs today. Second, it gives us accurate data because it's going to be entered comporting with the right formatting and all of that. So now we've got data that we can analyze much more easily. Third, it relieves that burden, that drudgery from the roles of the people who are doing it today, and it frees them up to pay attention to what the one constituency that they have in common, which is the customer. They can focus on what does the customer need, what do they want, what will help them, how do we support their decision making internally, how can we help them to understand the value that we're going to be delivering them. So we're not distracted by typing, we're not distracted by I have to report to my manager why I didn't put the deal size in or whatever the heck it is, right? So if I could wave a magic wand for a use case for AI, that's what I would do. And that's the story I would tell.
It's amazing, these basic functions that still get in the way, right? Not wanting to be distracted by typing, right? Not wanting to, get all this information. It's crazy. We're almost in 2026 and these are the problems that we're still facing just as humans trying to get basic tasks done.
Well, and AI realized we're a community of volunteers that are doing this work. And so a lot of us are putting our hands on the keyboard and doing, every step of every process ourselves. And I call it being in clickety, clickety, click land, because all we do is click on links and sites to make things happen. I would much rather be spending the time teaching an agent how to click those things for me and have those things get done on their own. Now, it's not that the technology is not there for us to do that. It's that we have to then step back, learn what is necessary to do the agentic work, and then deploy it and test it and do all of those things. And so we're a little behind the curve. Like many companies, they're behind the curve because you have to carve out the time to do the learning, the testing, and the evaluation. So I'd like to get out of clickety, clickety, click land.
What do you mean you're all volunteers? I assume any kind of AI conference that relates to this industry, it is business oriented, that someone's making money here. There's a fee, it's going to somebody. How can you all be volunteers? How does that work?
We have sponsors that cover the costs, the direct costs of the summit and tools and things like that. So basically, whatever money is brought in on tickets and on sponsorship are paying the direct expenses. Any money that we have left after that goes into all of the other work that we're doing through the year to pay for direct costs of those activities. So no one on our team is paid.
That's impressive. It's still hard for me to think about that, because I think of most people doing a conference, it's a for-profit endeavor, right? There's, hey, we make this conference, sell tickets, I think all these media outlets now, they've got an event business, they got a conference business, they're there to make that bottom line. So I'm still like, wait a minute, what do you mean you're all volunteers? It's still trying to process.
Well, it also means, Eric, a side thing that maybe isn't so obvious when you're thinking about that. We are devoted to helping enterprises adopt AI responsibly and to transform the way they work. And that's a mission of, that focuses on that early adopter leader, the executive team, the board, and all of the people who are in charge of something. Okay, and what's happening, of course, when we're deploying AI is we move from being in charge maybe of people or a process to being in charge of an agent or the outcome, the evaluation of the outcome. But we're in charge of something. So we're committed to supporting that effort. Well, because we have that as an exclusive focus and want people to be sharing their real world stories, we don't allow pay to play. So you can't buy your way onto the stage by being a sponsor. But by being a sponsor, you signal to those companies that are involved and in the room that you care about their adoption of AI responsibly too, that you are about helping them achieve their goals of transforming their organizations. You are there to be part of the solution. You're not there to pitch and shill. And that means a lot to people because, of course, the fundamental currency of all business is trust. And the way you establish trust starts with having a mutual goal. And so that mutual goal, and the goal can be as simple as to get to know each other, but the goal can be as complex as helping each other do something that's new and hard.
You mentioned on a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about. So what else makes it different, right? Because there's no shortage of AI conferences right now. Is it that like sponsorship angle? Because the other thing I was going to say is, how do you keep it from becoming a big vendor sales stage show, right? How do you make it a real learning space for leaders? And I think you started to touch on that. So yeah, how do you make sure that it's different in this saturated ecosystem? And how do you keep it from, like I said, we've been to those conferences, right? Every sponsor's got to be a vendor. They're all got their talk on stage. And you're like, oh, why did I sign up for this?
Yeah. Why did I pay to be here?
Yeah.
Yes. My father used to say, and I'm paying for this aggravation.
Yeah.
So the first is to have that as your core mission and have everybody buy into that core mission. So since we're there to support the executives, what's on the stage is the executives, the people who have done it, across many organizations. So like, for example, a Capgemini or a Deloitte or a GAI Insights, they work with many, many companies. So they can speak to the strategies that are allowing those companies to overcome the obstacles. We bring in diverse use cases from diverse industries so that people can learn from other industries. And that keeps the focus on what they need as well. The keynotes are always about either the market landscape, like let's set the table, what's true today, and some aspect of AI that hasn't been getting as much attention. Like this time, we're going to be talking about predictive AI, which is, of course, a very critical component to successful enterprise transformation. You can't do everything with generative AI. So that will be on the stage. So these topics are the things they care about and need to hear about. That's different. So what we hear from people in the room is this is the only AI conference I've ever attended where I actually learn something I can deploy tomorrow, and where I'm meeting people who are like me. Now that's what we all think we're getting when we go to other conferences. But
we hope we're getting, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And I don't think that the intentions are not there. I think GAI Insights, I just came back from GAI World, and I think they do a very good job of creating a lot of practical sharing, and put practitioners on the stage and things like that. It's a larger conference, and it's a 2-day conference, and so it's more complex to run, and it requires a bit more support for that. So that's another element. We keep it small. We want everybody to be able to meet everyone. So the first one was just 200 people. We will never let it go larger than 500 people, because at that size, everyone can meet everyone.
Yeah, I've seen conferences that started at 100 or so, 150. Next thing you know, not next, but like several years down the road, 3,000 people are going, and everyone said, yeah, it's not what it used to be. Like it used to really.
Well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Not only will we keep it at 500, but we'll just hold more events.
Oh, I see. You can split it up into multiple 500 or less events.
Exactly.
That's smart.
And by the way, it's changing so fast. It's not like 6 months from now, it won't be needed. It's just a lot for a volunteer team to take on. So for us to do more than what we're doing today, we do need to have enough financial underpinning to make it sustainable. We need at least one employed person on the team to do community management. And, that could come from membership. That's one thing we've talked about, is making it a member model. We've talked about having our sponsors that do a year-round sponsorship, something we call a community champion, and they sponsor all of our activities. So we've talked about different models. We haven't deployed any of those ideas yet. We're still at the sponsor ticket level right now, but that may change next year. It's not that it's not sustainable to keep it the way it is right now. It's that it is insufficient for the right. need. And so that's what's driving that decision, is the executives need more than what we can deliver on today's format.
So how did you get everyone to show up the first time, right? Because it's hard to create something new. Once it's going, people know, oh yeah, this was good. I'll come in the future, word of mouth. But how do you get people to come the first time? And then separately, tell me about some of the different challenges now that it's in the second year, the second iteration. Right? And we didn't even say it's November 5th. It's in San Francisco. So we're coming up here in a few weeks, in San Francisco, where a lot of people, it should be easy for them to either already be or get to. So, if you haven't gotten your tickets, this is your chance, if you're listening, to do that. But tell me about getting those people first time around, and what are you doing differently to get them to come back or tell their friends to come?
So it's pretty simple, really. Is you have to be clear about what it is that you're doing that matters to them. So what's in it for them? So they need to know that it's happening. They need to know that it's for them, and they need to know what to expect when they get there. And if you give them that information and the means by which to buy their ticket, the people who find that valuable will show up if they're available. So the biggest problem is availability. It's very hard. This is the reason that we have the events as 1-day events. It's very hard for an executive to take an entire day. 2 days is really hard out of their schedule. And so a lot of speakers will show up at an event, speak, and leave because they need to get back to their work. We want them to be able to stay the whole day. We want every speaker on the stage to stay the entire day. And so we made it 1 day.
We're locking the doors. If you come in at 9, we're not getting out till 5.
Well, we didn't need to do that because they just naturally stayed. They were interested in what other people had to say. They wanted to meet the people in the room. Now, not every single person stayed the whole day, but just about everyone did. So that is a testament to how valuable it was to them. It wasn't just about being on the stage and saying something about what they're doing. They were really getting value out of it. So you have to convey that to people before they actually can experience it. And there's a bit leap of faith. And I felt very humbled that people did, in fact, show up.
Because it's a network effect. No one's going to come if no one else is going to come. So you got to get somebody to agree to come, knowing that no one else has agreed to come in, or you got to convince a lot of people simultaneously, hey, if you come, then the other guy is going to come and we can all come. So that's what I wonder about, is like getting over the network effect of you either get nobody or you get everybody.
Well, you do share with people what you can about the interest, right? So when you start getting registrations, you can share, we're seeing these titles and these types of companies. So you don't reveal people's personal information, but you can give people a sense of who will be in the room. And that can be a helpful thing too. But it's always about why they should be there and not about why you want them there. And I don't think we address people that much, that way very much anymore. It's
Right.
a lot of me, and not a lot of, what's, you and what is in it for you. So when you speak something that is valuable to them with an invitation to join with others like you in a room to talk about something that's on your mind, it's more likely they're going to come. So, and they did.
Has it been harder the second time around, or is it a little easier now?
Some things are harder, some things are easier. I would say the fact that our first format was so successful made it easier to do the format for the second round. We know what works and what doesn't work. We know what people found value in. So the programming was much easier. It's more difficult to get people to commit. Everybody waits till the last minute for everything. It drives me crazy. It's hard to, trying to put a panel together, and you need, the moderator, and you need the people on the panel to all commit so that they can be a panel. And if you don't have those commitments, then you don't have a panel. You have a moderator. You have one person. So getting the commitments is challenging just because people's schedules are very busy. They need to get approval oftentimes to be on the stage. It's just slow, right? And I don't particularly care for that part of it. We also are doing so much more this year. When we write a biweekly Substack, this is the team, this isn't just me. We write a biweekly Substack, we do a weekly podcast, we do a quarterly roundtable, and we do the annual summit. So we've had to do the summit work with those other things on our plate. So that has made it somewhat harder. And sponsorship is always the hardest thing.
You got a lot going on. So how did it turn into a community then? How did you get it from one day summit to now this is a community? Now this is more. Was there just so much demand? Was it part of the plan, or was it, oh wow, people keep asking for more, they loved it so much they wanted to get the Substack and the podcast and all these other things?
It's the latter. Yeah, it was a spontaneous formation. Communities are made from people wanting to be together. That's what makes a community, and they wanted to be together. So our job is to activate that, to create the opportunities for them to be together, and to continue to bring them the value they were experiencing in the room so that they can do the hard work of the adoption. I mean, to us, that's the ultimate measure, is, are people adopting more? And are they successful? And is it realizing the value that they set out to achieve? Now, we're about to launch another program actually at AI Realized, which we call Ones to Watch in AI. And this is where the startups are featured. So we have a basically like a little TV show, a little YouTube TV show, where we interview the startups that we think are especially interesting for the enterprise executives. They tell their story, the audience asks questions and weigh in on whether they feel they're one to watch in AI. And then we'll have some way that we recognize the ones that are, considered to be of that caliber. So I think that's a very important addition to our programming, because the executives need to know what's out there and what's coming, but they're not ready for it all the time. So they need a way to sort of keep up with what's out there, and they need a way to find it when it's time for them to buy it. And so the tricky part for us is going to be how we do all that tagging to make sure that they can search on anything that they might need to search on in order to find the video of the two companies that are doing something in that particular space. And there are so many startups, extremely difficult to give them the most important, the most valuable, the most interesting, what have you. So the reason we have been somewhat hesitant to launch it is we want to make sure we have a solid way we are doing that filtering. To not that we're responsible to identify the ones to watch. We're just, but we want people to be credible. So our number one criteria is that you have a product in market and an enterprise use case that you can cite.
Those
because
are
that is it. Yeah. It's indicative that
a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, that's right. And it's indicative to the executives that they could buy. If they did have the need for that, they could buy it. It's not something that they're trying to build or something that will be available. It's something that they could buy today. They're unlikely to be ready. I mean, of all of the target buyers that any of us have at any moment in time, there's a very small percentage, something like 5% of the people that are in our target that are actually ready to buy at that time.
Right.
So, but we don't have a good way for people to simply keep track of who all the latest are, because there's so many of them and it's such a complex market.
If only you had an AI tool to help you with that.
If only you had an AI tool to help you with that. So we'll see if our approach is that AI tool that you can, use your chat. We actually use a product called customgpt.ai on our website, and we're hoping that we can use that so that you can interrogate customgpt.ai about, I'm looking for something that does X or Y. Is there anything in ones to watch an AI that we should look at? Right. That's what I'm hoping will be our solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then before we go, what are your, couple big themes for this year? I mean, I keep hearing about governance, security, ROI. Like what do you want to make sure that this is going to be on stage and discussed?
Well, AI Realize Summit on November 5th in San Francisco will have 5 production use cases from at scale companies from 5 different industries. Just like we had last year. We had 4 last year. We'll have 5 this year. We have a special use case or a special case study that's being done by Nikesh Gocheka at Stanford Healthcare on how the team, he's bringing the team. We're going to have a whole team of people who did a production deployment to talk about how they went from concept to production for Chat EHR, which is their award-winning framework for an electronic health record having a chat front end. So that's a very exciting one. And then we have a special panel on the managing customer relationships in the era of AI that will be led by Paul Vinogradov from Deloitte. And this is really the, what is it going to look like? How are we going to engage? Buyers are changing what they're doing. They're using LLMs instead of search. We're trying to make sure we're there when they use the LLMs, but there is so much more that's going to change in how people buy and therefore how we market and sell. And so that will be the conversation that's had on that panel. And then we'll talk about the challenges for, the strategies for overcoming the challenges related to data security, operations, and management. And we'll talk strategic planning, technology strategic planning, particularly managing agents at scale, which will be led by Lennon Gali at Atomic Work. And we'll talk about business strategy as well, which will be led by Tallulah Lamero. So
that's good.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
If we're going to sit down, let's say 2 years from now, we're sitting down, what do you hope that AI Realize will have accomplished for the enterprise community?
We will have provided them what my dear friend Don Townsend calls the glue and grease to make the goal happen. So we've made things easier and we've brought things together that need to come together. John Werner at MIT likes to call this bumping into each other, bumping against each other. That community is not about people having a good time together. It's about people supporting each other through this journey. And we are on a journey. We are transforming how businesses operate and what businesses do. And we're doing that from the inside out, Now, yes, there are AI native companies, and they are showing us what's possible when you don't have any encumbrances, and that's a helpful model for us to look at. But that's not what enterprises need to do. They need to transform from the inside out. And to do that requires a different kind of leadership. And one of my favorite questions to ask on our podcast is, what is the leadership skill that you find most valuable in the AI era?
What is the leadership skill you find most valuable in the AI era? What's the answer? What do people tell you?
I hear creativity, curiosity, humility. Those are probably the three most common.
But not, hardcore technical skills.
And not the sort of traditional leadership skills, right? Right. And so that's a very important change, that we are at the same level with our teams. We're all learning. We're all in, absorbing and trying to figure out how to do this new thing. And we're doing it on much more of a level playing field than a top-down kind of imposition. It's a bottoms-up, top-down exercise, which puts us all in the middle. And that's a good place for us to relate to each other from, but a different one. And you need different leadership skills when you're in that situation. That's why humility and creativity and curiosity are so valuable.
Yeah, no, it's impressive, because we think about, for me, with little kids, like, what are they supposed to be learning over the next 20 years in a world that AI can do so much, technology can do so much? Is it much more that? Can you be humble and creative? Can that matter more than how good your math is, or how good, you can code? It may not matter how good you can code.
So the most important thing they need to learn is to be a critical thinker. At the root of many of our societal problems is a lack of critical thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
And it is needed everywhere. You don't just need it when you're adopting AI. You don't just need it when you're in your decision-making process within any kind of a system. You need critical thinking in every aspect of your life. So raise good critical thinkers. Raise them to value creativity, curiosity, learning, adaptability. Teach them that being rigid is a limitation. It's fine. It's a bad thing in all situations, but it will change what is possible for them.
Right.
And then teach them to value others, because it's only through the way we come together with a new technology that we build something that is meaningful to humanity, to ourselves, to our organizations, and to our customers. We don't build the right things if we leave the people out.
What the last question here? What is your advice to executives who are getting pressure from their boards? So you better have an AI strategy. But
come to AI Realized on November 5th in San Francisco and find out what people are doing and really doing to bring their boards along and to respond to the pressures that they are getting to either go faster or deliver more. A big factor for the board is they're trying to understand. They do not have a specific outcome in mind, like, you need to be saving this much money or whatever, or have this brand or what have you. They are trying to make sure that we are doing the right things in the organization. Their job is to manage the long-term risk and success of the company. It is not to manage the company. So they're asking the questions about, what does this mean to our future? What do we need to do to be ready for this transition? How are we helping our customers through this? How are we recruiting the right workforce? How are we upskilling our workforce? Do we have the right workforce? Do we have one that's too big or too small? So they're asking questions about the health of the business in the context of this longer term thing. So those are the things they need to understand, and you should be prepared to answer those, because those are the new things. And if you don't know the answer, you need to say you'll get the answer and then come back when you have it. Don't try to fake it to make it. This is not the time to be doing this. Be transparent and honest and forthright. What you know, what you don't know, own that too, and help them understand, because that's the value you can bring to them, is to help them understand the parameters that are necessary for them to do their job.
I love it. Christina, so good. So we'll see you in just a few weeks here in San Francisco, November 5th, you said, right?
It's November 5th.
5.
That's right, at UCSF Mission Bay Conference Center in San Francisco. Tickets are on sale. They're available on Luma and on our website, which is airealizesummit.com.
What day of the week is that?
It is a Wednesday.
Wednesday. Good. So like the Wednesdays, that's the key. I got to know that. I guess it would be the day after election day. I guess there's some elections on the 4th, I guess. Like I'm in New Jersey. We've got a governor election on the 4th. So it's that week right
Okay.
there.
Day after voting. I like it. That's a
Yeah,
good way
mayor,
for
I think
people
that's like
to
New York
remember
City
it.
Mayor Day too. Yeah.
I highly, highly recommend if you come to AI Realize Summit that you bring a +1. Bring someone who reports to you, who's a peer to you, or someone who you know outside of your organization. The reason I say that is we hear over and over again that you learn more with someone.
True.
And
Talking
so
about
bring
it. Yeah.
someone, like,
Sharing notes. Yeah.
yeah, bring someone with you. We do sell groups of tickets, so you get a discount with 4 tickets and that type of thing. More to signal to people, think about bringing a team rather than just coming on your own. But that, there is a discount available. And we would, if you want to sponsor, we'd love to talk with you about sponsorship.
Awesome. Christina, thank you so much. Good luck in the next few weeks getting it all organized.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been great talking with you,
I'll
Eric.
talk to you soon. Thank you to my guest, and thanks for listening. Subscribe to get the latest episodes each week, and we'll see you next time.